nice to have you on Fashion and Style Essence with Jowy. Thank you for joining me. Guys, Ayo and I go a long way, and there are certain things that we can relate on when it comes to fashion, the business of fashion, and like the essence, like the core of what fashion is. Ayo, please tell us more about your own journey in fashion, what inspired you.
My name is Ayo, and I started doing fashion as a profession in 2010. It was the same year that I gained admission into the University of Arts in Vienna, where I was studying fashion and running my business as the creative director and the founder of the fashion label Ayo Vanelma, which is now transitioned into a sustainable, slow fashion, slow approach kind of brand. So it's been a long journey of, pursuing a fashion career to eventually, finishing my degree in fashion design and having a flagship at the Lagos Oriental Hotel.
What you did in France, what was it?
So what I've done in France is actually an executive MBA. I had 8 in-depth weeks into the way luxury works, what's the future of luxury tomorrow. So we spent a lot of time in Milan and in Paris.
I'm a believer that over the years in life, with all our experiences, it modifies who we are,
Absolutely.
And I just want you to talk about that, how that changed your perspective, because I remember that while you were in school in France, there was a time we were talking and we were both talking about, oh my God, fashion is really a big deal. Like, to some, it's not just about the glitz and glam, like it's serious business, for people that are in the business of fashion.
Yes.
And so they pay attention to the details, the details that people overlook. This fashion that people just think, oh, you're a fashion designer, what do you do? You know how like some people want to downplay what it is. So I want us to be more specific when it comes to the core of fashion. And I'm saying this because, France, Milan, Italy, where else do you think?
I'm not sure we can have this conversation in such a short time, so I'll try to keep it as dense as I can. So first of all, fashion in France or fashion in Italy, those are the two main countries you talk about when you talk about luxury fashion. And I'm not saying that African fashion is not luxury. I'm just saying that there's certain words in the world of international luxury, which these two countries very, very strongly represent, that translate into heritage, into very rich history, and also translates into very deep craftsmanship. So when you look at a brand like, let's take, for example, one of the most famous brands at the moment, when you look at, I can go on and on. When you look at Louis Vuitton was founded way back, in the 1950s. It's an old brand. It's been around for, in fact, what did I say? Did I say 1950s? No, it was founded in the 18-something century. So Louis Vuitton, the guy himself who founded the brand, if he was alive today, would be over 200 years old. If you look at Balenciaga, which is a trendy brand at the moment, he was Cristobal Balenciaga, he was Spanish, and then he moved to Paris to pursue his career. Those are people that have been around for 70, 80, 100 years. And when you look at the culture of artisanship, Louis Vuitton himself, he was a trunk maker for 17 years. Can you imagine you being a tailor under someone for 17 years to really master your craft? Yeah. And this is one of the things we lack when we talk about craftsmanship in the African context, because everybody wants to be a CEO. People think you just do a course for 3 months. My study program was a 5-year program, and a lot of times students didn't even finish it in 5 years because you just took a gap year because you were just tired of, and you needed a break. So first of all, luxury in an international perspective is very, very time-bound. It means you're very focused, you're determined, you're dedicated, you sit, you totally master. Louis Vuitton is a legendary trunk maker. Until today, that's what the brand celebrates, their trunks. You know, if you walk at Louis Vuitton, they want you to push the trunks. You know, they do all the trunks, all the cases for every trophy, from Formula One to basketball to everything. They're still really in the business of making trunks, even though they've kind of evolved contemporarily to making your travel suitcases as well. So these are brands that have a lot of history. You know, when you look at brands, all of them, any of the Kering houses, you know, talk about Gucci, talk about maybe the youngest, I think the youngest brand at Kering is Alexander McQueen, you know, which is also not super young, you know. So what I'm trying to say is that building a lasting legacy, building a lasting, you know, a history that is impactful, it takes time. You know, and as Africans, if we really want to make a meaningful impact in the world of luxury, we have to understand that detailing, being so fine in your arts, takes time, dedication, commitment. You stay at it, you know, and you continue to grow, to evolve, to become better. You know, you continue to look for more knowledge, to know more, to be better, you know. So I think it's kind of like totally two completely different approaches, and I believe that we will get there. And also, if you look at, like, when you keep saying, oh, this business is a business, of course it is a business, you know. Louis Vuitton makes half of the 65 billion that Louis Vuitton Moet Hennessy, the group, is revenues per year. So Louis Vuitton is probably worth like 35 billion per year. Chanel is worth about maybe 17 billion per year. I mean, billion in euros. This is like serious business, of course, you know. We must be moving hundreds of thousands of pieces of create to make that kind of revenue, you know. You know, Balenciaga probably does, I don't know, maybe 3-4 billion, if Saint Laurent maybe 2 billion. So this is, of course, fashion is business, you know. It's not, you know, beyond the and the fun and the using Kim Kardashian and Justin Bieber wearing the clothes, or, you know, Jennifer Lopez is currently in Paris and wearing, you know, the Hermes bag and all these things. You know, these are brands that are very highly valuable because they have been able to maintain their heritage, you know, and they've been able to keep telling. You know, one thing that we kept on hearing in my program was storytelling. You know, you have a story to tell, a story that is really inspiring. When you go on the pages that these brands use to communicate, from LinkedIn to YouTube, you know, even the way the story is communicated is so brilliant, so fascinating. So we need to tell stories that are very captivating and very enchanting. It's not just about, oh, you know, doing the Owambe parties and making bridal dresses. You know, are we really ready to compete, to really compete on an international level? You know, and that takes time. You know, I'm not saying, it's something we also discuss. Must luxury always have a history? Must luxury today always have a heritage? There are younger brands that are like maybe 15, 20 years, maybe 5 years, that are not as old. But then in that case, they're very capital intensive. They consume a lot of capital because you have to build a story around it, and you have to tell it and tell it and tell it again. You know, you can never communicate it enough. So you can't really cheat your way out of that, you know, creating that sort of brand equity and brand value and brand image. You know, I think we can't cheat our way out of that if we want to be taken seriously, but I believe we're getting there. Yeah.
Oh, you do, right? You do?
Mm-hmm. I do. I mean, we have a few brands that have made a bit of a headway, especially when you look at the South African brands. They seem to be doing, you know, more famous internationally. I think 2 years ago, or maybe 2019, the South African who won the Louis Vuitton Moet Hennessy, the Louis Vuitton prize, and usually the South Africans are doing well. There's usually also a few Nigerians. I'm just kind of curious to see where are we going to be in 5 years, in 10 years. How are those brands going to maintain that momentum, you know, and keep, you know, because we all know all the challenges that come with producing in Africa. Now, the typical place to produce fashion, if you're talking luxury, has become Italy. Everyone is not producing in Italy. If you cannot afford Italy, you go to Turkey. So, because you just have less issues to deal with. Now, that takes us back into the roller coaster of we're not going to be able to employ Africans So what's going to happen to our own local craftsmanship? And one thing that is very, very important in the history, in the storytelling of luxury, is that production must be local. You know, you respect a Hermes bag because it was made in the studio in Paris. You know, you love
originality.
Exactly. You know, you keep it, you're very authentic about where it comes from. You know, you love the fact that you go to Place Vendôme, you have the ateliers, the artists work there. That's why there's something about making the Swiss watches in Switzerland, you know? So if we begin to export all our work to Italy or to Turkey, you lose that sense of originality, that authenticity. So eventually we're going to have to deal with a lot of issues like production, you know, electricity, staff, manpower, ethics, work ethics, people's commitment to work, you know. And I think that it's having a legacy mindset, you know. You're not thinking you must create your own brand, but saying, okay, I want to be a part of somebody else's legacy, and I can contribute to that, and I'm just going to do my very best and make that happen, you know. When you look at all this legendary brands in Italy and in France, they have workforces of 29 to 150,000 employees working for them, you know? So if we cannot employ Africans because we don't pay that attention to detail, or somebody's coming to work for you for 6 months to, you know, kind of sap on all your juice and all your know-how and all your, you know, operational systems, and then go implement it because they think they can do so in 6 months or in a year, you know. It just doesn't work like that. You know, if you look into the history of a lot of these brands, it's the people that have really mastered their crafts over many, many, many years, you know, collaborated with other artists, of course, maybe jewelry, high jewelry, other, you know, artists that are in the filmmaking industry, you know, really opening up to collaborations, working together, employing their own local staff, and so on. So hopefully we'll get there.
Yeah, I know that we as Nigerians, we as Africans, we have a heritage. Like, we have such a rich culture, and this is a soil that we can actually dig into and, you know, make so much out of, you know, in terms of fashion. But I think what it is for us is like the dedication, and also so many factors, to be honest. There are a lot of factors that there's not much we can do about, you know. And I can imagine that these are things that affect us. But then again, a lot of like Nigerian designers, they're doing great. They're being recognized like internationally and stuff like that. But then again, I see it as Nigerians pay more attention to trends.
Yes.
You know, they pay more attention to trends and pay more attention to the glitz and glam that's attached with it. And when you take all of that out, it's almost like there's nothing to show for it. Like there's no, and that's where the originality comes in. A lot of Nigerians, I can imagine that their productions are done like outside Nigeria, especially if you want to sell like bulk items and stuff like that. I can imagine that productions are done, you know, out of Nigeria. But brands like this, top brands like this that you've spoken about, I want people to understand that that's why there's such a big deal when you hold a Louis Vuitton bag or an Hermes, just like you said, because of the originality that's attached to it. Do you see what I mean? Like,
you can't cheat time. You know, it's like if someone is 70, they are 70.
Yeah.
You know, and if you're 20, you're 20. You can't cheat time. If you want to have that kind of impact, of course, what you can do is say, okay, you're going to look at what they did, follow their strategy, and maybe copy paste it. But you're still going to you might eventually still need that amount of time, because it takes time for a brand to resonate internationally. You know, I mean, these brands are almost like, wow, can you really compete with them? Yes, maybe you might be able to pay Beyonce, or if you're lucky, you don't have to pay Beyonce, you don't have to pay Kim Kardashian, you don't have to pay Rihanna, and they would stumble across your product and they would wear it. but does that sustain you and make you a world-renowned brand?
Exactly.
You know?
Exactly.
So at the end of the day, I think that time is a factor we cannot cut out. You know, you need the right investment, you need the right story, legacy. Like you said, we have a great heritage that can be sort of like, you know, built into every story that we want to tell because we have a beautiful heritage. But how many of us are really showcasing that? The last collection I did for Aya Vanelma, I worked on it in Mali, and everything was handmade. It was hand woven cotton. It was hand painted with stencils. I worked in an atelier like really locally with Malians, and I did the same thing in Nigeria. I worked really with local artists and created in fact, the stencils were especially made for me, and then I used them, and that tells a story that is original rather than if I would just, you know, maybe print nice prints on silks. You know, because honestly, that's what MS does as well. They create beautiful prints digitally, and then they print it on silks, and then you pay, you know, $2,000 for a piece of it. Yeah. So I think the time factor really matters. And then you asked about style, but I'm not sure I really understood your question. I think that every brand, what these brands also have that we don't have yet as emerging brands or brands that originate from emerging countries, is their aesthetic and their signature. You know, when you see a Chanel dress, when you see there's a signature that is attached to Chanel, you know that Chanel uses a certain kind of tweed and weaves in a particular way. You know that a Bottega Veneta bag, you know, has this padded leather that is interwoven. You know, each of them has sort of created its own monogram that is a statement. When you see Burberry, when you hear Burberry, you think trench coats, you think of their tartan, you know. Yeah, and until we create those kind of aesthetics that really make us stand out, that when you see it, you know that this is the signature, you know, and we're not just following, you know, the trends and creating things like everyone else. We need to get to a point where of course, you're gonna have other designs. Chanel does a lot apart from its tweeds, right? They do a whole lot of things. Now they do accessories, wristwatches, and you know, they even started doing sneakers. And at the end of the day, a white pair of sneakers here and there, they all look comfortable, you know. However, what the things that are their signature looks make them world renowned, you know. And some of them have mastered that very well, like Burberry pieces. You always sort of almost know that this is a Burberry trench, you know, and because it's particular to them. So when are we going to get to that point where we sort of create an aesthetic that kind of really is holistic, carries the heritage, the originality, tells a story, is a signature, you know? And that's where I think, for me, signature and style sort of goes hand in hand on a brand level, because every brand has a style, has a style, a signature, the statement it makes. You know, this is it. There's a reason why
you beat me to it. I was just going to say, like, with everything you've talked about, like, I'm just going to connect it, you know, right now with style, because, like, generally, this YouTube channel, you know, that this series that I'm doing with Fashion and Style Essence with Jowy is just to make people understand, like, the core or the essence of fashion and style and how it relates to you as a person, you know, because some people think that style is not for them, you know, but I constantly say something, and as Tan France said, if you're not a newbie, pay attention to style, because you're stepping out there and everybody has a perception of you once you step out there. So yes, style is important to you. And with what you've said, I'm just going to round this up by connecting, you know, the pieces of what you said to style. Style defines individuals. That's how I see it. That's what I preach. I call it my fashion gospel, right? My fashion style gospel. It's like style defines you. It defines who you are. And that's what I hear you say with all these luxury brands.
Yes.
If you see a Louis Vuitton bag, before you see the logo, you know it's Louboutin. Do you see what I'm saying? Because, like you said, they create a monogram and they stick to it. Like it's like that's their style. That's what defines them. That's what they are known by, and they stay with it.
Yes.
You see, and it's the same thing with all the other brands, Balenciaga, Hermes, like all of these, and so it's very, very necessary to first of all define your style.
Absolutely.
You know, I mean, so don't get me wrong. I try out different brands. Do you get? I try different brands. I mean, but the good thing is I know what my style is, and I know what makes me look good, and I stick with it. Absolutely. And I always tell people, if you're one of those who wants to play it safe, just find your style and stick around it. The day you want to do trial and error, it's not the day that you're going for that big meeting. Do you get what I'm trying to say? Absolutely. So take, for example, if one of these big brands was going into, had a business meeting to present their product to someone or something that was very important to their brand, that was not the time to be test marketing a new product that was coming out. Do you see what I'm saying? Yes. So it's just like connected with all this, and I'm very grateful, Ayo, that you've given us this insight, because it's my style gospel, and I preach to people all the time. You just have to look good, guys. I always say dress to impress. There's nothing wrong with it. It can cost you those deals that you spend hours talking, you know, and talking about, which is what you and I kind of talked about at the beginning before we jumped on this, you know, meeting. You get to your stages in life where you really need to know what works for you. And style, oh, I can't preach it enough. Like, style is super important. So thank you so much, Ayo, for joining me on this.
You're welcome.
Yeah, it's my pleasure. It's really my pleasure. I really enjoyed this, and guys, I hope you enjoyed this as much as we did. And we're going to say goodbye to Ayo now.
Goodbye. Goodbye.
Yeah, Ayo, thank you so much, and hopefully we'll have you again soon on the show.
Yes, anytime. Always ready to talk about fashion and what I'm doing at the moment. So
thank you so much. Have a blessed day.
You too. Take care. Bye-bye.
Thank you so much for joining us on this session. I really hope you enjoyed it as much as we did. And I'm really glad that Ayo came and also shared her experience. And what I've taken from it, which I mentioned earlier, is just the connection, you know, with style and fashion, and also like in terms of what we talked about, the heritage and how in-depth it is for some of these cultures. And I hope you can apply it to your individual style, you know, just generally understanding more what your style is and the need to define your style. If you've enjoyed this video, make sure you share with someone that needs to hear this. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe, and I'll see you again next week.